We are 2 days away from players reporting to training camp and the Pittsburgh Steelers beginning their journey and that final chapter before the 2023 season. And while every player is going to make headlines over the next 4 weeks, everybody is going to talk about everybody small who makes big waves. I have one sleeper, and not only do I believe that this guy is going to steal the show and earn plenty of praise over the next 4 weeks at St. Vincent College, but I think he's going to head into week one as a starter. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, let's talk about the sleeper. I have one, and not only do I believe that this guy is going to make plenty of splash and waves and headlines over the next 4 weeks, and I get it. Everybody is going to talk about everybody in different facets and have their own sleepers and their own stars once training camp starts. But we all generally find one or two guys that we believe have stood out and have stood out enough to earn a place on this team and contribute to the success of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year, it was Jaylen Warren. The year before that, it was James Pierre. This year, I have one name. He's a cornerback. He wasn't always a cornerback, but I believe that he fits exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. And that is a slot guy who could contribute, who could be a little bit of Mike Hilton because they have Patrick Peterson to be a coverage option. That's how I see the Steelers cornerbacks laying out. I think that Joey Porter Jr. is going to be good enough to start. And even if he doesn't end up in the starting lineup or have his name announced when they run out of the tunnel, I believe that he is going to get a starting caliber job with the Pittsburgh Steelers come week one. Him, Levi Wallace, and Patrick Peterson will rotate and have their own little collaboration to assure that the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary features more of them than anybody else. And even if Joey Porter Jr. isn't on the field for the first snap, once the team drops into a sub package or has a dime or a slot corner out on the field and nickelback out on the field, Joey Porter will arise. And Patrick Peterson will bounce inside for the most part and play that role in coverage territory. That's the big one. The Steelers are going to utilize their slot corner in different facets. Patrick Peterson will be the slot corner or the nickelback who is there to stop big name receivers like Amari Cooper or T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or Tyler Boyd. There are a lot of slot corners in Cincinnati or slot wide receivers in Cincinnati. But you could add Rashad Bateman to that list too and Odell Beckham from time to time. That's who Patrick Peterson will be against. And that's his job, is to come in here and be a veteran presence, be somebody who could see better from the inside, as he has alluded to, and could play slower on the inside, which he has alluded to, and find his way to stop these big name guys, because last year the Steelers found themselves in holes. There were times when the Cincinnati Bengals decided T. Higgins was going to play half of a game in the slot because Arthur Millette couldn't stop him to save his life. Couldn't even come close. The Steelers realize that, and they now understand that the AFC North, and really the AFC in general, is so difficult when it comes to wide receivers that they have to have a reliable option at all times to stop those inside receivers. Joey Porter Jr. is here to be an outside guy. Levi Wallace is a starter on the outside, and those two are very capable, very talented, and I think the Steelers feel very comfortable with those two on the outside if Patrick Peterson jumps inside. But then they want a Mike Hilton. They've been looking for a Mike Hilton. That's why they signed Arthur Millette, because he reminded them of Mike Hilton, a guy who goes 100% all the time, who is not afraid to put his shoulder down, who's a little dude with a big thud. That's who they're looking for. Somebody to go after the quarterback, to be a run stuffer, to be physical, and to kind of set the tone at that slot position in more of a, I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to be an extra pass rusher. And I'm going to be the physical presence that you are not ready for in a football game. Last year, they weren't able to make that work because they didn't have an option to cover anybody. And with Mike Hilton, while he was at times not the most dependable coverage corner, he was definitely a more dependable option than Arthur Millette was. This year, they're looking at Patrick Peterson to be that option. But when it comes to that rusher, when it comes to that physical presence, that's where Elijah Riley is going to step in for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And not only am I confident that this guy is going to be a sleeper and beat out guys like Chandon Sullivan and Duke Dawson, but I believe that he's going to be that week one. I'm out on the field, a good chunk of play. I am the guy that's on the inside when Patrick Peterson is on the outside. And if Patrick Peterson is starting on the outside and we're announcing a slot corner in the starting lineup, Elijah Riley's running onto the football field. What I think gives Riley the upper hand, and I've talked about Elijah before. I haven't held back on my thoughts about Elijah Riley and how I think this is his year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what I think gives him the upper hand is that he is at his most comfortable when he is playing that position. That's where he played at college when he went to Army. He is a very physical player. He played safety a year ago, which I believe helps everybody. When you have to learn every position on the field and understand exactly what's going on with every player on offense and on defense, you learn so much of this game and you see it completely different. And with Elijah Riley, he spent a whole year learning the Steelers defense from the secondary or from the safety position, and understanding everything. Now he gets to bump inside and play slot corner and compete with two guys that are hit or miss, I would say, and have a year of understanding this defense and understanding it from a position where he has told me he wasn't able to ask questions and really get a deep understanding, a deep learning or knowledge of this defense, because by the time he came in, it was too late in the season to ask those simple questions. So he had to learn it himself. He had to teach himself. He had to observe a little bit more than everybody else. And he took that to his advantage. And now when he moves inside, he has a full understanding of self-knowledge on top of a full offseason of learning from the coaches and asking those questions that he wanted to ask last year that he didn't teach himself or was unable to learn on the fly. And he is at his most comfortable and his most comfortable position. I don't expect Elijah Riley to come up with a bunch of interceptions or be that James Pierre splash where everybody's like, oh my gosh, this guy is just a menace. He's picking off Kenny Pickett left and right. I see a guy like Luke Barku or Corey Trice being that name that everybody's freaking out over because he's coming up with interceptions left and right. What I see Elijah Riley doing is being a guy who consistently stands in the backfield because Kenny Pickett has to get around him because he can't hit a quarterback during training camp, and you're not even going to try. But if you could get back there time and time and time again, Mike Tomlin's going to be standing around with big smiles. The offensive line is going to be standing around with big frowns. Pat Myers is going to be pissed. Eddie Faulkner is going to be pissed. But Elijah Riley is going to be impressive. And I think fans are going to enjoy it. They're going to see it immediately. And those who aren't at training camp, I'm going to do my best to vocalize how impactful that is. But if the Steelers are able to utilize both options, if they could head into the season with Patrick Peterson being the guy that solidifies the secondary in a coverage aspect, that allows Joey Porter Jr. and Levi Wallace to play comfortably on the outside while he's on the inside, and nobody has to worry about anybody. That has been the Steelers' issue for years now, is there has always been one position that the entire secondary has to cover for. And that forces everybody to play just a little bit differently than they would naturally. And that causes issues. That causes gaps. That causes holes in the defense. That causes mistakes, communication errors, everything. If you could have Patrick Peterson on the inside with Levi Wallace and Joey Porter Jr. on the outside, DeMonte KZ and Minkah Fitzpatrick at the secondary or at the safety position, you feel very comfortable at all five positions. Then on rushing downs or downs where the Steelers just say, go get him. Just go get him. Elijah Riley walks on the field. He adds that I'm going to hit somebody presence. He brings that Mike Hilton. And it's a total game changer. It allows the Steelers secondary to feel complete. And it has been a long time since the Steelers secondary has felt complete. I got big expectations for names like Alfonso Graham, Luke Barku, Corey Trice, Mark Robinson, Keanu Benton, Calvin Austin, Jordan Bird, plenty of guys that may be flying under the radar heading into Latrobe. But I think by the end of it, everybody's going to find their place. And guys are going to come and go, and sleepers, or people who believe are sleepers, are going to drift off. I think Elijah Riley holds strong this entire time. And I think by the end of camp, there's absolutely no denying that he is a part of this defense and a part that the Steelers are going to utilize. And I think that depending on the formation and depending on the situation, you're going to see plenty of Elijah Riley during the 2023 season.